Welcome back to .NET Rocks. This is Carl Franklin.
And this is Richard Campbell.
Got my fingers ready for writing some code.
Are you now?
Oh, yeah.
Up to some things.
I write code so fast, you can't even see my fingers flying. They're just a blur.
Just a blur code.
And to prove my point, roll the music for Better Know Framework.
Awesome. All right, man. What do you got?
I want you to go to hackertyper.net.
Hackertyper.
Hackertyper.net. You get a black screen.
Right. And now I type.
Click in there and just hit keys as fast as you can.
Wow.
And out comes this beautiful code at a speed that would make Mark Miller go, "What? Slow down."
I'm pretty sure I would indent like this. It's like, are these spaces? Oh, my God.
Yes. However, for the
This is
poor
awesome,
unsuspecting soul that you want to impress, this is fantastic.
That's awesome.
Hackertyper.
I love it. That's hilarious. What a great idea.
Yeah, it's a fun time.
Yeah. Crack me up.
That's it. That's all I got. Just a little distraction today. Who's talking to us, Richard?
Good one. Grabbed a comment off of show 1372 from November of 2016, where we talked about building mobile apps using MFractor with one Matthew Robbins. Maybe you've heard of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I have.
Had a few good comments on that show. You know, MFractor's pretty cool. We should talk about it some more.
We should.
This comment comes from Andy Dent. So it's about a year old or so, where he says, I love this show for many reasons. I've been involved in code generation since the early Mac Classic days. And any Mac folk may remember App Maker and Prototyper, both of which I contributed to, and using declarations to generate MFC. I'm now a huge Fody fan.
Yeah.
We use it as an essential part of the Realm SDK for Xamarin, generating data accessors from simple classes declarations. I'm also a big believer in using tools to provide some, quote, editorial assistance, end quote. That is, moving errors from runtime to compile time, or even edit time, which, you know, you think about how popular VS Code has become so quickly. I think what's affecting the rest of the community is something we've always known in the Visual Studio space, which is getting those little squiggles under your code as you write them. Edit time debugging, man.
Yep.
Like it's awesome stuff.
Yep.
There seems to be so much ritual associated with Xamarin that they should offer a wand and cloaked in corporate colors. My favorite gotcha in Xamarin Studio on the Mac, admittedly this is a year ago, is having to force a rebuild when you switch device types because the cache is not always reliably flushed. Debugging timing errors with one device stuck in yesterday's code is Doctor Who territory.
That's not where you want to be.
Which is to say, like the TARDIS, it's buggier on the inside.
Right.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
I love it. But yeah, no, you know, it's only been a couple of years. How many is it? 3 years now that Xamarin's been part of Microsoft.
Still painful.
Well, and but clearly they're making progress. It's just a lot of code to work on, you know.
Yeah.
It's taking a while. I don't envy anybody getting all of that sorted out and making what is always going to be a more complicated process, building mobile apps on a machine that's not, you know, that's not the machine you deploy on.
I'm just waiting for everything up to date. Go build a brand new Xamarin app and try to compile it.
See,
I'm just waiting for that.
This is
That'd be nice.
Just your high maintenance.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the day.
Yeah.
But that happens sometimes.
Well, we still have that problem where it demos like a hot damn, but a real app is more complicated than that.
Yep. I want to be James Montemagno magic with Xamarin. That's what I want.
He's pretty magic. Mix a little hackertyper.net in with a little James Montemagno. It's like, look, Xamarin flies out of my fingers.
Right, exactly. That'd be awesome.
So, Andy, thank you so much for your comment. A copy of Music to Code By is on its way to you. And if you'd like some Music to Code By, write a comment on the website at .netrocks.com or via any of our social media, because we publish every show to Facebook and Google+. And if you comment there and we read it on the show, we'll send you some Music to Code By.
Absolutely. And I think we're, by now, May 10th, up to 16 tracks. I know there's definitely 15, but see, we're recording this on April 30th, so I'm not sure.
It's always a little time shifting in our lives. Time shifting,
but I'm pretty sure I'll have it out by then.
Love it.
And definitely follow us on Twitter. He's at Rich Campbell. I'm at Carl Franklin. Send us a tweet. We dynamically compile them to get rid of squiggles.
We focus on the little squiggles under all the characters.
Yeah. All right. Let's bring Matthew Robbins on here. The last show, as we said, was November 2016. He's the creator of MFractor, a suite of incredible productivity tools for Visual Studio Mac. He's a Microsoft MVP who's been neck deep in Xamarin since 2012. And welcome back, Matt.
Hi, Richard. Hi, Kyle. It's fantastic to get back on finally.
What do you think about that comment and the sentiment around it?
That Xamarin still has work to do, and it's a bit of a magic box sometimes.
Well, and a moving target, right? Like at any Visual Studio update time, things could break that you wouldn't expect to break, and just a lot of moving parts still.
Yeah, I mean, they're on a moving surface in some ways because so Microsoft has the luxury with like ASP.NET that they control like the core tech and when to distribute it. But Xamarin, they're built on top of Apple's iOS stuff and Google's Android stuff, and that's just like a constantly moving platform for them.
Yeah. Two of them.
Yeah, so hats off to them for being able to do it, but I can understand why things occasionally get out of line.
Well, and it's not like they get, pre-versions from Apple and Android either, right? It's literally when it drops for everybody, it drops for them.
Yeah, I think that they might be like part of some insiders thing. I'm sure they have to be, right?
Mm. As I understand it, there is no insider thing with Apple. There might be something with Google, but...
Wow, that changes my perspective a bit because that's even harder.
You got to at least have a black turtleneck.
I have worked with Miguel at times trying to schedule him for shows, and one of the things constant on his radar is when an OS is going to drop, and he's like, "I'm sorry, I need to have that week clear."
Right.
Because when that happens, it is a scramble.
Yeah.
Yep, I can imagine that's all hands on deck for like 60, 70 hours.
Yeah.
So let's talk MFractor. Bring us up to date. First of all, this is a productivity suite for Visual Studio Mac, not just Xamarin, but in general, Visual Studio Mac. Tell us, give us the elevator pitch, and then we'll go on to what's new.
Yeah, so MFractor is a suite of incredible tools for Visual Studio for Mac. We primarily have been focusing on the Xamarin space. Our customers have kind of pushed us towards going towards Xamarin Forms. Mm-hmm. But we're starting to more and more go into the C# space. So we've got now 2-3 dozen code inspections and refactorings just for C#.
Yeah.
And we've got quite a few more on our radar. So watch that space. We're going to have quite a few more coming later in the year.
Yeah.
For Xamarin, that's our bread and butter. We have a whole suite of tooling for Xamarin Forms. So we have our own XAML IntelliSense editor, tooltips, tons of navigation shortcuts. And then we're looking to solve some of the problems as well, specifically with imaging and localization. Both of those things in mobile apps are just a pain in the ass in general.
Yeah.
So we've got two really, really nice tools called the Image Wizard and the Localization Wizard that help speed up those processes.
And you have these things like fixes for XAML code. Just fix it. What is that all about?
Well, if we can spot an error for you, that's really only doing half the job.
Yeah.
Like it's nice. You think of it like if you're working with someone, if they're critiquing you, you kind of want, a bit of help in knowing how to solve it rather than just having the issue told to you.
Right.
So we really, really like, if we can find an issue, we really do try to find a fix for it as well. So say, for instance, this is one of our most common ones that people use. In Xamarin Forms, you have your XAML page and a view model, so MVVM architecture.
Yeah.
And occasionally you'll do a data binding from the XAML onto the view model, and that property won't exist on the view model.
Yeah.
So we discover that relationship and figure out when that doesn't exist and tell you, because this is the source of a whole world of pain. Because we can figure out that relationship and then know that it's missing, we're using Roslyn, so we can just generate code and make that view model like that, make that property for you.
That's what I miss about VB, and even VB.NET to some extent, was that it just filled in and corrected things for you that were ceremonial,
Yeah, I guess we're trying to do the same thing as well. But there's so many obvious things. Like I'll be working and I'll go, why am I doing this by hand, or why is this not being picked up for me automatically?
Yeah.
It's just this source of like frustration that I think we can improve.
Yeah, right. And it's not that developers are lazy and you need to write code for them. No, that's not it. But the more I can focus just on what I want to do, and the more a tool can fill in the plumbing code, I mean, that's what Microsoft is all about. That's what their languages and tools are all about. You're just taking it to that next level.
Yeah, essentially. So just want to make your lives easier, basically.
We like that.
And I still feel like the XAML flavor of Xamarin is kind of a wrestling match. Like it's still not, it's not a perfect fit over either iOS or Android.
Yeah, I would agree with that, I guess. But my background is not really from WPF or Silverlights, and
Right.
the XAML that I've known has always been Xamarin Forms.
Right.
So my perspective probably is a bit skewed.
I would also say your perspective is more relevant because more and more it's like it's about the mobile guys.
Yeah, and personally, I love XAML as a tooling developer because there's a one-to-one mapping from that's what you declare in code and that's the symbol that you get.
Right.
Like it's really, really straightforward to write tooling for. Yeah, it's good. But there are some things with XAML that are a bit clunky, like calling constructors. I don't know how to do that effectively off the top of my head. It's a bit tricky, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually, you know what? It's not something you would normally do. I guess that's why you don't see it.
Yeah.
Right.
So tell us about some of the things that are, the features that are available for C# and Xamarin Forms, and then maybe go into some of the new things.
So our big drawcard feature that we've been working on, I think we probably kicked it off about November last year. We sat down and had a look at the XAML editing experience and thought, well, this is just kind of the bare bones that Xamarin have provided, and there's a lot of room that can go on, like you can improve from here. So we'd already had, I think we had this even when we discussed, I talked previously, we already had navigation shortcuts and tooltips, and maybe starting to get code generation. But we wanted to just simplify that and make it really, really easy to use. And the way to do that is make our own text editor, essentially. So our XAML editor, we're basically hooking in all the MFractor code actions to being inline. So as you're typing, we're doing things like if you're in a resource dictionary and you want to make a new value converter, so say it takes a string or a boolean and puts a string out. That's something that you do pretty regularly. And there's a lot of ceremony around that. Like you have to create a new file, you have to then declare it in the resource dictionary and then wire it into wherever it's going. So we wanted to just make that, like those kind of processes, very, very easy to do. So only a couple of keystrokes versus 5 minutes of labor.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're typing in the completion, there'll be like a code action section. And so there you can do things like importing new images, generating new view model bindings, view model commands, creating new effects. So there's a whole world of things that we can do here now. And I feel like we're only just getting started, to be perfectly honest. I've got a few other things in the pipeline that I'm pretty excited about.
It's interesting that you're focused on Visual Studio for Mac, because I feel like it's almost a misnomer, because it's not the Visual Studio Code, right? This is Xamarin's old coding tool that they just rebranded as Visual Studio. Yeah,
that's correct. I know they're pulling in parts of the core Visual Studio IDE, like slowly. But I don't, like, as someone who's obviously inside that product, swimming around all the time, I'm not seeing the changes come in that quickly.
Right.
But they're definitely coming. So there's this kind of like joining of ancestry between VS Mac and VS Windows.
Well, and of course, I'm sure you field the question all the time, when is MFractor for Visual Studio for Windows coming out?
Yeah. Oh, I get hammered with that all the time. Yeah, the answer is eventually. I think realistically what needs to happen is that we need to get funded for that.
Right.
So we might have to look into getting a Series A to make that happen.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to find ways to do it without taking on. I mean, investment is essentially it's a debt of sorts.
Well, it sets you on a path, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you get onto a path now that involves invariably some kind of exit.
Yeah, and I don't think that's in our best interests at the moment.
Mhm.
So we want to make great tooling for developers. I want to be able to take the time to do that properly.
Mhm.
Even if things are taking a bit longer than what we would all like. But I think that investment would rush that, and we'd have to start making compromises to fulfill the investors' goals rather than to fulfill the developers' goals.
It's got to be a very challenging dance between looking at what Visual Studio for Mac and what Visual Studio for Windows are adding versus what you're working on. Like if they suddenly pour a lot of energy into their Xamarin tooling, like they could easily step on a bunch of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, and we've experienced that a bit. So, I mean, I think we've been seriously cut at the knees yet, but we're really, really acutely aware that might happen.
Right.
I mean, I've spoken to people about this at Microsoft, and they're really supportive of what we're doing, but at the same time, their interest is in solving their customers' problems.
Sure.
Our interest is in solving their customers' problems.
Yeah.
So it's inevitable that they're going to do the same things that we do. We just have to do them faster, I guess.
Right. And better ideas, thinking further forward, better engage with the customer. Like obviously, Carl and I have a bunch of friends that are in this business.
Yep.
Of building tools around in this Microsoft ecosystem, and just abundantly aware of that. You're dancing with the elephant, and the elephant doesn't always know when it steps on you.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and it's like I'll be perfectly honest. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't find it amazingly fun.
Yeah, right.
I quite like the challenge of it all. But yeah, there are times where I'm like, Microsoft, can you just leave me alone so that I can just scale this thing up and make it work?
Right.
Yeah.
What's the experience in general compared to Visual Studio for Windows of developing for Xamarin and Visual Studio for Mac?
My personal opinion is that it's much better. I mean, obviously you get MFractor.
Right.
Shameless plug. But it's just closer to the metal, essentially.
Right.
Like iOS, you're sitting directly above Xcode. There's no network proxy that goes to it. Like it's just taking out this huge layer of things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
For Android, I mean, drivers and stuff to actually play and debug onto your phones, what's that all about? Like that's just painful.
Yeah.
That just, as a user experience, that just sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just all these little things. Well, actually, they're not so little.
What about Android emulation?
Oh,
because that's always been a problem. It's getting better, but it's always been a hard problem on Windows.
Well, I'm in my happy little Mac bubble, so I don't go onto Windows very often. Like I haven't actually touched Visual Studio Windows extensively for maybe 4 years.
Okay.
So yeah, my perspective is a bit off, I think. Android emulation, if you're using like Genymotion, it's not a huge problem on Mac. Like it's really quite painless.
All right. Well, that's good to know.
Mm.
Hey, hold that thought right there while we take a minute for this very important message. Support for .NET Rocks is brought to you by Conversational UI from Progress Telerik and Kendo UI. Conversational UI are chatbot framework agnostic user interface controls and components that enable .NET and JavaScript developers to create modern conversational chatbot experiences in their web, mobile, and desktop applications. The industry's first packaged set of user interface components built specifically for chatbots are available as part of Telerik's ASP.NET Ajax, ASP.NET MVC, ASP.NET Core, WinForms, WPF, Xamarin products, and Kendo UI for jQuery, Angular, Vue, React, PHP, and JSP libraries. By implementing key UI design features such as calendars, date pickers, list views, and others that are included in the toolsets, developers will be able to improve chatbot conversation through visual elements. For more information, visit Telerik.com/conversational-UI. And we're back with Matthew Robbins. This is Carl Franklin. Richard Campbell's here. You're listening to .NET Rocks, and we're talking about MFractor and Visual Studio for the Mac and the wonderfulness that it is when you're developing for Xamarin.
I got to think that the big thing about working Visual Studio for the Mac is your iOS experience, that you are on a machine that can do that push for iOS directly. You're not making that extra jump.
My experience has been pretty good running it on a Mac with running Windows in Boot Camp with Parallels or something like that. It's been pretty good. However, my Android experience is always best when I use a phone directly connected to it rather than an emulator. And I wonder if that's what you do on the Mac side, or are you not even working with the Android apps?
So I've worked predominantly in Xamarin Forms, and the great thing about Xamarin Forms is that when it works okay on iOS, it's going to work okay on Android.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't swallow that. Sorry.
Well,
I mean, I'm being a little facetious. You're right about the user interface for the most part, but there are differences on the OSs that you have to account for. Yeah. That's all I meant.
Yeah, absolutely. But I find because the simulator experience for iOS is much more rapid, and there's less of a cost to doing it.
Right.
I work maybe 60% of the way with iOS, and then I don't tend to use real devices a whole lot. Mostly just because I'm a cheapskate and don't have many. But when I do Android development, it tends to be against a Genymotion emulator, so I pay for that because that's just so good.
Okay. Do you ever develop directly to hardware, or are you always in emulators?
No, I pretty regularly do. Like, there'd be a couple of times a week that I would definitely push onto a phone. Like, there's things you just can't test on a simulator.
Right.
Like,
load speed.
Your mouse pointer is much more. Yeah, well, that's it. And your mouse pointer is much more fine-grained than your finger. Mm-hmm. Like, your finger's it's like 48 pixels or something that it hits. So it's like a big dumb blob.
Right.
Yeah, I remember when we were first playing with touchscreens in Windows, you could have that hover over effect that would show just how big your fingertip was relative to a mouse pointer. You just forget the precision there. The sort of instinctual precision you get with a mouse. Fingers don't work the same way. On the other hand, you can read, if you're clever about it, you can read the orientation of a finger. I remember that from
How does that work?
The old Surface. Remember the old Surface before they hijacked it for those laptops?
Yeah, the card table that you can actually use as a computer.
Yes, except, unless you bump against it, knock it out of alignment, in which case start over. And, did you drop 14 grand on that table? Nice one.
Don't spill your drinks.
But you talk about a weird version of WPF. Those guys are doing some wacky stuff in WPF, and one of the things they could do is actually detect which angle your finger was, because you could have 50 touches on it at once. And so you could actually say, these are fingers from one hand, and this is fingers from another hand, and so forth, by figuring out those orientations.
Yeah, wow. I'm looking at my fingers right now, and I'm a bit blown away by it.
Well, because a finger's not a perfectly spherical or circular dot on your screen. It has a shape. That could tell you something. I think we've suppressed all that data now. All that work that was done on that old table and the later versions and so forth just kind of faded away.
Right.
No, it'll get rediscovered and rebranded and resold in a couple of years, knowing how
as a new product.
Yep.
I bet it'll have an AI label.
Genius. Absolutely genius.
Oh, there's a little sarcasm there. You might be a mobile developer.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Just a tiny bit frustrated.
I'm a tooling developer.
Nice. So you make a Lite and a Pro edition, and the Lite version is free, Pro edition is paid. Am I correct?
Yep, that's right.
Can you talk about the differences?
Sure. I mean, the biggest difference is when you're using the Lite version, we give you unlimited access to the features for 2 XAML files per day.
Okay.
So you can use whatever you want: IntelliSense, action, code actions, tooltips, navigation. It doesn't matter. But once you hit that third one, MFractor being the lovely pushy thing that it can be, we'll just say, hey, sorry, but we've shut down.
Right.
No more features for you.
It's sort of the point of you're working at a scale now where you should probably be paying for this.
Yeah, exactly. and we did some surveys and some validation to find the best number, and that was the one that seemed to be because we need to make money essentially, and
Sure.
we also
stay afloat.
want people to use the product, and that seemed to be that number that was the difference between pure hobbyists and people who are doing it professionally. So yeah, that was the trigger point.
Well, 300 Aussie dollars, that's just not that. That's an individual could pay that. That's not an extraordinary sum of money.
Yeah. And I mean, you know what? If you look at it this way, purely from a return on investment point of view, our localization wizard, which is a tool that you can use to take strings into regex files,
Right.
Yeah.
we've had people who have paid for that, and then I've spoken to them. They went through and localized their entire app in 4 hours. So
Wow, cool.
we're talking something like 400 or 500 string resources.
Yeah.
That's something, if you're doing manual labor, that would take you 4 or 5 days, or perhaps
Sure.
more than a week.
Sure.
So the purchase of that has definitely paid off, just in that one tool alone. And I think that maybe developers need to look at things from a more pragmatic business perspective in some cases.
Sure. Well, you've got to value your own working hours, right? Just this perspective of, you know how much you're paid? Like, holy man. Although
Right.
it does sound like internationalization is one of those linchpin features. Like, if you have this problem, you're buying this. The conversation's over. Like, because it's so much harder to do it other ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of our target focuses that we're going to start actually trying to improve quite a bit.
Mhm.
I mean, when I was at the MVP Summit back in March, what's it, May? Is it May today?
No, yeah, it's May now, but it was
May
March
now.
then. Yeah.
Mhm.
I was speaking to lots of United States-based developers, some Australian developers, and they're all quite happy with the product. But then I started to drift into like developers from Mexico, Brazil, Portugal,
Right.
Spain.
Yep.
And they're like, yeah, we have to do 2 languages. Like, we have to do English and Spanish or Portuguese. Like, we have to do it.
Yeah, it's
And
not optional.
As a result, things takes just so much longer. And
Right.
like, they absolutely love the tooling, like the localization wizard, to death. And it was like a light bulb, like, ding. I'm like, we suck at supporting our like English second language
Yeah.
developers. We really aren't doing a very good job of it.
Right.
True. I mean, doesn't help that the language itself is English-ish. I mean, it's another obstacle if you're having to learn C# as a non-English speaker, for example. Even more weird. Hey, Richard,
Yeah, buddy.
guess what time it is now?
I must be that happy time again.
Yeah, man. It's time to announce the Xamarin Finger Control Suite for germaphobes.
Don't touch me.
They only work for the 5 minutes after you clean your screen with alcohol wipes. Rory Blythe would be all over that.
All over it. I miss you, Rory. Somebody asked me about him the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually time to give away a D-Experience subscription from our friends at DevExpress to one lucky member of the .NET Rocks fan club. You know, everyone knows that DevExpress has great desktop controls, but their web tools are simply amazing. They have this collection of HTML5 JavaScript controls called DevExtreme. And at the heart of this product line are these really powerful controls like grid, chart, pivot grid, tree list, and scheduler. But DevExtreme also comes with more than 50 touch-optimized client-side controls, data visualizers, navigators, editors, lists, dialogues, and notification controls, and general-purpose controls like a filter builder, range slider, file uploader, scroll view, and more. And since they're all HTML5 JavaScript, they include integrations with things like jQuery, Knockout, React, Ionic, and Angular. Plus, DevExtreme controls come with ASP.NET MVC and ASP.NET Core wrappers, so they're infinitely flexible. But don't take our word for it. Go for a test drive at dx.netrocks.com. That's dx.netrocks.com.
All right, buddy. Who's our winner?
Today's winner, Richard, is Mode Lee.
Congratulations, Mode.
Mode
Golf
Lee.
clap for you.
And Mode wins a copy of the D-Experience subscription from DevX. That's a big pile of awesome from them, just for being a member of the .NET Rocks fan club. And if you'd like to join, go to .netrocks.com, click on the big Get Free Stuff button, answer a few questions, and join the fan club. We have thousands of members all over the world, and every show we like to give away stuff from our sponsors. And every December we give away a $5,000 technology shopping spree to one lucky member of the .NET Rocks fan club. But you have to sign up to win. And Matt, now it's your turn. If you had $5,000 to spend on technology, what would you buy right now?
That is a very easy amount to spend on technology.
Yeah.
Well, aren't you between homes right now? So you're probably thinking about stuff you need.
I am, but I'm also going through this lovely liberating phase of going, what don't I need?
Yeah.
So
the great purge.
The great purge. It's like it's the capital T, capital G, capital P. I love it.
Mm-hmm. But it's also then the few things you have should be of high quality and versatile.
Mm.
Yeah, they're quite purposeful at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice. As for the 5K, I think I said the same answer last time. I could just blow that on a Mac straight away.
Yeah,
Apple will always take your money. Like that's inevitable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the full Pro?
I think I would because I'm looking at, eventually, getting somewhere to not be a nomad and live again. So I reckon one of the big 20-something inch retinas, lots of RAM.
Yeah.
Giant screens.
That'd be good. Something that compiles MFractor in minus 10 seconds. I just have to think about it while I'm in the kitchen making a coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And I come back and it's compiled. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. To get to that place. And for better or worse, Apple has always sort of pushed the edge on what's possible with some of their screens. Like their 5K is pretty epic. It's also $5,000. So
Yep.
the iMac Pro with the 5K 27-inch. There you go, $5,000 base unit.
Boom.
Yeah. Can I borrow another 5K for the next time? And I'll just get the higher end one again.
Because you want to put some memory in it.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, you want memory? That's another 5K.
Yeah. Can I have more than 8 gig, please?
Yeah. It's funny how it's hard to spend $5,000 on almost any computer except for a Mac. Where a Mac you can get started at $5,000 and go from there.
Yep.
Yeah.
You better be making some money with that thing.
Yep. Might be the living, how we actually live. I'm fascinated that you're into having a desktop machine. I love mine. I wait to go to work on the 43-inch 4K and with the good Cherry keyboard and so forth. But lots of people just live in their laptops and don't want anything else.
Not me. I'm with you, Richard.
Yeah.
I love my 2 30-inch screens.
Yeah, well, I've been a laptop person for years. But I think as MFractor is growing, and I'm looking at eventually settling, stopping and getting somewhere more permanent to work on it, the laptop just isn't it just isn't scaling what I want it to.
Yeah, it's not enough.
I got to compliment you on the quality of your documentation, docs.mfractor.com. Because the animated GIFs of showing your stuff in action are just awesome. And I find it's easy to search and easy to navigate when you're using the tree view. It's just really, really well done documentation.
Thank you. That's really, really nice to hear. We found that GIFs... so basically that came out of Twitter, essentially. I'm very, very active on Twitter, and I think I've really used Twitter to effectively market it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I hit upon a formula maybe a year and a half ago. And I'm like, people respond best to the tweets with GIFs in them.
Right.
And the reason is you can see, the progression of what a feature does. A static screenshot doesn't do it justice. A text description doesn't do it justice. Videos have a barrier to entry. and people often disable them loading on their phones to save to save bandwidths. But GIFs are like that perfect Goldilocks zone of image data,
and they also stand out, right? When you're looking at a screen full of tweets, the ones that are moving catch your eye. Let's face it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, what our plan is with the GIFs, we want for most features to have something that represents what they do, and then we want to put that into Visual Studio for Mac as well. Like one thing that we're really working hard on is exposing people to new features, and because the MFractor does so much stuff, it does heaps, and people, they're not leveraging the product to what it can be leveraged to. Yeah. So I'm excited to bring those GIFs and put them into like a weekly product tooltip window to help train people. And I think that'd be a really, really great way for people to basically get better at their jobs, essentially.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's great. Hey, I wonder if we've gone over enough of the newer features of MFractor.
Yeah. So last year, I think I hinted at I think I talked about an image wizard. So this is something that our users love to death.
Okay.
Working with images in mobile apps, I'm sure that you guys have experienced this.
Oh, yeah, it's wonderful. I love it. Yeah. It's what I look forward to every day.
Yeah, I was tired of sticking needles in my eyes, so I'm trying to manage images on my mobile devices.
Oh, great. Wow.
Because it hurts less. It doesn't take as much time.
I think I physically cringed at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got this awesome tool called the Image Wizard. Basically, a designer gives you the 1024 by 1024 image that's pretty much useless to go straight into the app. I mean, bless designers' cotton socks. I love them. But they sometimes don't listen to instructions. It's like I need 7 images with specific sizes.
Right.
Mind you, things have gotten better since Zeppelin and Envision and whatnot, but there's still a bit of a fight to get things into your actual project. So they've given you a 1024 by 1024 image. That was supposed to be your application icon,
right?
For iOS. So now you have to generate, or I say like a toolbar icon. So you have to generate 3 new sizes in a much smaller density. You've got a problem now. You have to then go into Photoshop, downsize it, generate 3 of each, then generate like 7 or 8 for Android, manually import them in one by one by hand through the right-click menu. Like, that sucks. That whole thing, that just sucks.
Yeah.
So we've got this tool called the Image Wizard. You open it up. It's in the Tools menu. This is a professional feature as well. You say, this is the image that I want. And MFractor goes, sweet, here's a preview of it. Here's the projects that it can go into. Here's the sizes you can choose to come in at, like at 3, at 2, at 1, XXX, HDPI, those sizes. And then you can choose the maximum size of it. So if it was 1024, you can downsize it back to say, 128. And then MFractor will do the at 3x at 128, the at 2x at 64. Is that the right?
Okay.
I've opened up the docs.
Sounds right enough.
Yeah. And then it'll, generate all those images, put them all into the right folders, set all the build targets as correct. So like bundle resource or Android resource. And voila, in about 30 seconds, you've got an image into your app and they can do another one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, we talk about that time savings of all that hopping between apps, making all the different versions, making sure they all look good, importing them all. Like, this is just a time suck.
Yep, it is. We've got my to-do list in MFractor is a football field long, and just image tooling it's huge.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to start properly doing some of this stuff. So in addition to the image manager, like on the football field note of things, I want to add like a visual image editor. I want to add an image manager. If Sketch, Envision, and Zeppelin would expose APIs, I would just love to directly glue it into those systems. Like, why are we manually downloading this stuff and then manually importing it? It's just silly. they've got all that data for us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just don't get it.
I hear the frustration in your voice, right? It's just like all this time we've put into trying to shorten the cycle for the mobile dev, write some code, see it on the device and so forth. But it's all of this busy work for dealing with multiple platforms and multiple devices. And it's just a lot of stuff.
There's just, that's the absolute right term. There's just so much busy work. Like we've focused so hard on optimizing build times, optimizing app sizes, the time it takes to go to emulators. But the reality is that the tooling is what you spend 8 hours a day in.
Right. Sure.
I hope you spend 8 hours a day in it, not much more. And it's like, and every couple of seconds you can save during that 8 hour cycle, it just makes everything much easier, and it can make your job less stressful.
Yeah, because you're getting more done. But I like this. I hate how much work we have to do where the only recourse when you do it wrong is be more careful next time.
Yeah.
That the real recourse should be there should be a better tool. There should only be one way to do this that is the right way. It's like, ever set the wrong size image into a particular specification for a mobile app? Like, that sucks.
Yeah.
It does suck. And that, do it the right way, that sucks. Like that's such a bad user experience mindset.
Yes.
For you to expect to have to know how to do something.
Yep.
I mean, it's great that you have the technical knowledge and whatnot, but not to discount software developers, but in some ways we're like glorified plumbers.
Mm-hmm.
Plumbers, they have pipes and they always fit together properly. They have very clear specifications on how things join. My dad's a plumber, by the way, so that's why I use that analogy. Yeah, so there should just be clear defined ways of doing things, and if you're not sure about it, then the tooling should be able to help you, and help you learn how to do it properly, rather than you spending 2 hours in documentation for something like an image size.
No, I think it's totally reasonable. It's interesting just to look back, because the last show we did with you in November 2016, this is before you committed to Visual Studio for Mac and sort of that really getting into these tooling problems. So you've had a busy year and a half.
I have. I mean, it's been crazy. So just to recount kind of what's happened in that year and a half.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was really struggling to get users and get them to stick.
Yep.
At that point. So back then it was like, is this even, do people care? Do people want it?
Yeah.
Is it even going to be viable as a business? Because the intention was always to be a business.
Yeah.
Whereas we saw these some really, really, big growth spurts in the last year. So for some perspective, we're closing in on, I think we're at about 700 monthly users.
Nice.
So it's a not significant number anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And back then we would have been lucky to have 150, 200 monthly users, if that. And they weren't using features either. Like, these were people who were just installing and the product was just sitting there.
Right.
So now we're actually getting people to use it.
Yeah.
We successfully commercialized it last year. That was a big step.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
You guys had to do licensing engines. That is a pain in the arse.
There's some fun.
Once, and then the next time I delegated.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is stressful. So we successfully commercialized in, I think, officially June last year. So we're about to end financial year 1,
mm-hmm.
which is exciting. We survived. We're here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really
1
good.
year down.
Yep. And then the really, really cool thing is I realized, it was last week, we've actually doubled our revenue target. So we set a really, really modest revenue target for the year, and we're like, if we don't hit this, then we're going to kill it, because why are we putting so much of our lives into something that is not going to scale and take off?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then, about a week or two ago, we doubled that target. So
wow, well done.
Yeah, so we're probably on track to do more and more and more again. So there's tons of room to expand this product, I think.
When they say that magic number is 1,000 loyal fans, right? You're in a few hundred now, and I'm not saying every customer that's using your product is a loyal fan, but I bet a bunch of them are. So I feel to me like when you talk about the numbers of where you're at, you may be on the cusp in the next year of sort of tipping over that point where you have that block of fans that spread your product, demand a lot from you, and pushing the features forward and so forth. Like, you're right there, dude.
Yeah, we're almost there. And I'm looking to get someone to start helping with some marketing and content writing. So,
Sure.
like, I might be actually paying someone soon to work with me.
Are you terrified by that?
I'm really excited. Like, I sent some emails out recently talking to people about this, and I'm like, this is amazing that I have to stop every now and again because I get so caught up in the details of what I'm doing that I don't sit back and go, hang on, Matt, like, you're about to offer someone paid work that's funded from the product itself. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a little scary.
Yeah. 3 years ago when I started, that was, the dream is to be my own boss. And now, like, I can actually offer someone paid work. It's amazing.
No, it's fascinating, and good on you for slugging your way through and now being able to think about those particular problems and what that looks like going forward. Because we all want a sustainable product, right? Your customers wanted to keep growing. There's all that infinite feature list that they want, and being able to just keep moving forward on it.
Yeah, it's like, I'll admit it's pretty tiring at times.
Oh, sure.
But like at the same time, it's awesome when you finally hit a problem that needed solving, or you find a way to generate sales. You're like, yep, people want this and they want to keep going on it, and this is a real problem that needs to get solved.
Yeah, the knowing what I need to build next, that's always a good day. That's what do people care about is a way harder problem to answer. Yeah. Yeah. So you've been holding off on going to 4.0, right? There's been lots of revs to 3.2, 3.4, 3.5. Are you building up a model for what the big 4.0 jump would look like?
The 4.0 jump would either be monthly subscription licensing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love, getting $300 Australian in one hit from customers.
Yeah.
Right.
But I acknowledge that it's probably not the best model, like the most user-friendly model.
Yeah.
As opposed to $25 a month.
Yeah, essentially.
Right.
So, like, I want as much people to have it as possible, but also be able to fund the development of the product.
Sure.
Right.
Because if we're not free, like, if we're free, it won't exist. Like, we can't do it.
No.
But we can't expect people to realistically fork out $300. Like, it's a very privileged thing to be able to do, is to go, I have $300 to spare, I can just pay for a tool.
Right.
Even knowing what you're typically paid, and like one day's worth of work saving more than pays for that.
Yeah. And the rationale here is it's not so much for the American, the Australian, the New Zealand, the European people. It's to enable, like, Latin America,
sure,
Southeast Asia and stuff, to give them access to it, because I've got quite a few people who are interested in it. But the price point is something that they flag as just being a hurdle from them being able to make the jump.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what's next? What's on your to-do list? I mean, you did talk about your transition and what's going on, but tell us what's next for MFractor.
So monthly licensing, that's something that we're actively looking into. As always, these things just take longer than you want them to, but it will come eventually. We have done prototypes of Visual Studio for Windows, but as I said before, want to do it, but the cost, like just the sheer time cost of doing it, kind of prohibits us from being able to bootstrap it, I think.
I can't imagine too much of the code from what you're doing in Visual Studio for Mac is going to port across to what you have to do in Visual Studio for Windows. Like, they're not the same product.
I think the way that we've built things is that we'll be able to get a lot of it across.
Nice.
Like, we have a very clear architecture in how things are built. So we leverage Roslyn. So we take a really high dependency on Roslyn.
Nice.
Which is that's for Visual Studio for Mac, and Visual Studio for Windows also supports it. We have some very, very clear architectural ways of things are built. And the experience of me being a mobile developer for like 6 years is essentially the same thing, right? Like it's two, user interface surfaces, Visual Studio for Mac and Visual Studio for Windows.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole time that MFractor is being engineered, the thought is how is this going to be reused for Windows at some point in time? So there's like the whole product itself is structured like a mobile application. Like two project heads, and then the bulk of it in like a PCL or .NET library.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, but just to jump back onto where it's going in terms of features, I think I was ranting about this before. Localization tooling, it sucks. We need to get better at that. So I've got a big list of stuff to do for that. Image tooling, that sucks. We need to get better at that. I've got a big list of things for that. C# tooling, there is so many things that we can do for C#.
Yeah.
So I've got a big list of things to do for that as well. And then I just want to tidy up and enhance everything that we've currently got. So our XAML experience, it's definitely better than Visual Studio for Mac's default one. But I look at it and I go, we still have like 200 holes in this thing that need to get plugged up.
Right.
So yeah, it's like which one do I do first? It's like rolling the dice.
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you'll keep us posted when new things happen, right?
I absolutely will.
All right, Matt. Thank you very much for telling us about MFractor and all the new stuff that's going on. It's been great.
Cool. Thanks, Richard and Carl.
All right, and we'll see you next time on .NET Rocks. .NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net and produced by Pwop Studios, a full-service audio, video, and post-production facility located physically in New London, Connecticut, and of course in the cloud. Online at pwop.com. Visit our website at dotnetrocks.com for RSS feeds, downloads, mobile apps, comments, and access to the full archives going back to show number 1, recorded in September 2002. And make sure you check out our sponsors. They keep us in business. Now go write some code. See you next time.
Got transmitter banned by the FCC. Yes, I'm a toy boy. Life is hard.